They want us in smart cities so they can depopulate because these psychopaths think there's too many of us.
So wait, are you saying that the smart city is designed is because when you're living in a smart city, there's going to be all these negative things to your health that will kill you, and the goal is to put us in smart cities so we die? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all about killing people off.
Welcome to Behind the Story, the show that explores the pivotal moments, lessons, and big visions of entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, leaders, and influencers redefining what's possible. I'm Jelani, your host and guide. Let's begin.
Mr. T, welcome to BTS.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. With all the places you visited around the world, was there a particular moment in your life where something changed and with how you view the world and where you decided to go?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fascinated with Asia and New Zealand, Australia, and ended up actually living down that way for a while. And I think there was just curiosity more than anything that drew me that way. And I lived in Europe later in my life, and then now in the Caribbean.
Was there anything particular in your background that really inspired your curiosity for other cultures and other places?
Yeah, I think it was just, I come from a family where we toured a lot, we traveled a lot, and I was just naturally curious about new places, new food, new cultures, etc. So from a young age, that was in my spine, I think.
Okay. So you created the platform, The Educated Traveler, and it's designed to help people that are interested in travel and visiting other places. What was the inspiration for that, for creating The Educated Traveler?
Well, it kind of happened because I was heavily involved in different business activities here on the north coast of Dominican Republic. Yeah, so one day I was in a meeting with quite influential businessman, and he wanted to make a couple of documentaries, and he said, you seem so well connected, and I knew a lot of information about the area I live in. So he said, would you be willing to make a couple of documentaries? And he said, they may be picked up. I'm going to send them over to some, well, it was a film company or some kind of video production firm in the US. And he had to get them checked out, like trailers, and it was disapproved. So after that, he said, if you want to keep rocking with it and making more videos and just have it on your own platform, you can feel free to do that. He put some money into those two videos, and then he wanted out, of course, because it didn't get approved. So it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. So I decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel. So that gave me blood on the tooth, and I got into making YouTube videos. And I think what helped me get started, which is probably one of the questions you might have in mind for me, was I have a background in direct sales, and approaching people just came natural. I actually took some little tickets here with Educated Traveler, So I handed out thousands of these tickets. I was like a machine. If there was a truck full of tourists, I would say to the guy in the back of the truck, do you mind handing these out to the people in the, these open trucks with benches, and tourists sit there and they take them to waterfalls, etc. So I gave out thousands. So I was just driving traffic to my channel to kickstart it. And I haven't stopped, because when you get in I'm a real networker, I would like to think. And when you get in conversation with somebody, it's so easy just to say, oh, by the way, check out my channel. Oh, nice.
Exactly.
It's a conversation piece. It's also a good way to approach people. Excuse me, you're traveling in the area here? If you don't mind, I'll just give you some little tickets here to my YouTube channel. You can check it out, blah, 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 And so I'm always promoting. It's one thing I learned from the sales industry, which is my background. Selling is like shaving. If you don't do a little bit every day, you turn into a bum. So you got to be at it all the time. Promoting is the same thing. So I'm always promoting.
Of all the places that you visited, how did you come on deciding to settle and live in the Dominican Republic?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit political on this one because
That's all
I
right.
lived in a land down under, and I got sick of that because over-regulated society. So I ended up settling in Europe, and then after 5 years of living there, I came to the same conclusion. Different place, same crap. So I started looking where else could I have warm weather, clear water, a much less regulated society where you can actually, to some extent, do what you want, when you want, how you want, as long as you don't step on other people's toes. So Dominican Republic, especially at that time, seemed very lax on, it was just $10 at the airport, welcome, have a good time kind of thing. It's become a lot more
Right.
strict now, etc. But that was the lay of the land at that moment. So came here on a 3-week reconnaissance trip, and then went back to Europe, came back a year later and stayed. So during that year,
How have you seen the
I was looking online to see if I moved there, what could I do work-wise? And
Mhm.
I couldn't figure it out for a while. And one day it dawned on me that, I was trying to find websites about this industry and that industry, and there was just hardly any websites. So I thought, well, maybe that's what they need, websites. So I contacted a firm in Argentina and said, if I sell them, will you make them? And we go 50-50. And we made the first 2 websites in Europe, and that worked out fine. And then I had the vehicle for making money when I came here. So, yeah.
Got it. How have you seen the island change over the years?
Sorry, I got to get you to repeat that. How have I seen? Sorry.
No problem. How has the island changed over the years? How have you seen the place change over the last 3 years?
There's a word called gentrification, and it's
Very
happening
familiar
in
with
many
it.
places around the world. And it's not pretty. I don't like it. That is probably one of the complaints from the long-term expats, and that comes from the word expatriates, people who are immigrants, people who immigrated here, unhappy about how all the greenery is disappearing, replaced by concrete, and how access to beaches is being blocked off by hotels, resorts, or other condominium complexes where you just can't get to the beach. Punta Cana over here is one of those places that I don't enjoy so much because it can be quite difficult to get to the beach spot you want to get to, because you can just go 40 kilometers that way and then walk 40 kilometers back on the beach. You may be in front of that resort, but you can't just freely get to the beach because they blocked it off. So
Is it
that's
and are the beaches
one thing
been
that I see
private
has
then?
changed. Say again?
Have they made the beaches private because are they owned by the resorts then? Like, how is it?
Well, I think
How work?
what's happening now is the country's been sold out. If you check Jamaica, same thing. Corporations are gradually, it's death through 1,000 cuts. A little bit here, a little bit there, and then suddenly you realize 80% of the ownership is by foreign entities. So, and that's happening in many places around the world, especially here as well. Especially this president that we have right now, he's right into getting every deal made he can, getting Hollywood people here and so on. They talk like it's the most positive thing, but like in the area I live, we have seen the town turn from something amazing, tranquil, fun, into empty martial law town full of soldier-looking police that drive around too on a motorbike with a shotgun. And we have to look at this every day. And I'm part of fighting against all of that too. But this is the kind of thing that has changed. So it's not the same fun, free-spirited place, like a melting pot of foreigners who always used to come here by the tens of thousands. So tourism's just gone down, 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 down every single year. And they've cut flight paths off, but now we are moving into talking about the globalist agenda of that. They don't want us to travel. They want us on digital IDs, no cash, control, so that's what's changing everything. But like frogs in the pot, you heat it up slowly. The frogs don't realize they're being boiled. And that's what's happening here. People don't realize their freedoms are being taken away one piece at a time. And suddenly the Dominicans have to move out further into the countryside because they can't afford to, a lot of them, to live by the coastline. And even some foreigners are in the same predicament. It depends on what people's budget is.
Right.
But it's getting more and more expensive. So, Anyway, I'll let you pop the next question.
No, that's fine. That's all very valuable information. I was going to follow up and ask you, who you mentioned the corporations taking over the land and the properties and making it more difficult for the locals. Who is spearheading that? Who does the corporations have agreements with that they can do that? Because I'm assuming they're foreign corporations. They're not local Dominican Republic corporations doing this. So where do they get the permission to do that? Who's fueling that gentrification, as you mentioned?
Well, maybe I can answer it like that. I was in the street today talking with a Dominican guy, and he was going on about their president. He said he doesn't like Dominicans, and he ain't Dominican.
What do you mean?
The president here, he's not Dominican. So he's of another nationality, and he is selling Dominican
How is he
Republic.
president then? They allow that someone who's not Dominican to be president of the Dominican Republic. How does that work?
One of the parents. Hang on, I just got to get some. You can cut this piece out. Yeah. What's the country?
Go ahead.
I've got a brain. And okay, do you have more information? His parents. One was Lebanese. Okay, he's from Lebanon. He didn't grow up. Okay, we can start again.
Go ahead.
So the president of Dominican Republic is from Lebanon. He didn't even grow up here. So, yeah, I got to look into it deeper how he managed to become president. But a lot of it is about being from a very wealthy family. They've even got Lebanese connections in Haiti. And a lot of the things that we see are organized across the border. So there's a lot of stuff going on here that is, in my opinion, highly corrupt. And he's what I call a globalist. He's selling off this country bit by bit. And a lot of Dominicans are very, very angry about what's happening to their country and how they're losing control of their towns, their culture, etc., because of everything that's happening and happening so fast.
So I'm assuming that it's not common knowledge for the Dominican people that he's not of them, because they obviously voted for him, did they not? And put him in office. So they voted for an outsider, or they did not know?
Yeah, a lot of them are regretting voting for him now because, like we see in many places, like US, the globalists don't give a hoot about the little people and the middle class. In my opinion, the agenda is to destroy the middle class. That's why COVID had all the inflation kick in and everything doubled or tripled in price. So here's the big question. Did it come back down in price after this boogie virus disappeared? No, nothing's come down in price. And then you have to ask yourself, well, was it about the virus or was it about creating all these disasters that robs our human, civil and property rights, our wealth from us, our assets from us, our property? That's, in my opinion, what it's all about. And everything's been weaponized to strip people of everything you like, need, want, desire, respect, admire, and live for. Anything to do with human life, our businesses. I mean, I'm watching here for the last many months, businesses being destroyed. They came in here with 25 trucks to the local town, Sosúa, full of cops, machine pistols, camera crews. It was a big PR stunt as well, and they took staff, dragged them in, threw them in paddy wagons or in the prison trucks, took them away. And for weeks and weeks afterwards, it was ghost town. We didn't have any tourists. They killed all tourism under the guise of, oh, we are fighting sex trafficking, prostitution, this, that, and the other thing. They always come up with this BS, and it was far from the truth. You know, any man walking around in town is a pedophile, and you know, so they smeared everybody, but they were the terrorists. They terrorized like the town here and destroyed the economy, and businesses are still suffering. Taxi drivers have had to hand their taxis back, their licenses back, because they just don't have any customers. So these are nasty attacks. They flushed the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. No, the triplets, actually. So, yeah, I know this is heavy stuff I'm covering here for somebody who's running a travel channel, but I cover it the best I can. I cover it the best I can, even during the COVID-19 scamdemic, as I call it. Not everybody agrees with what I'm saying, but it was impossible not to talk about it because it was forced on us, whether it was the face nappy thing or the bio weapon pokey or the thing you had to stick up your nose. All these things were forced on people. You couldn't go into the supermarket without somebody saying, oh, you need to do this or that in order to get your bread. So I had to either shut down the channel or speak about it. And when I spoke about it, you know, then, oh, this video's been kicked off because you violated the ScrewTube's community guidelines, you know. So it's all weaponized, as I say. Everything's weaponized. Every single little thing that has anything to do with business or human life is there to destroy the middle class, to give the billionaires of this world complete, utter technocracy control. That's why they want all the digital stuff. And that comes to one of the things I wanted to actually talk to you about in this show, which is the future of travel. And,
we will
I'm very
get to it.
worried about that.
I want to follow up on just what you mentioned about the local community and how they came in with all the trucks and the police and whatnot. I'm struggling to understand what was their desired outcome. What were they trying to accomplish?
Okay, it's
by
still
devastating
happening.
the community?
They've raped two ends of the beach here, which is like a 1 kilometer beach, beautiful trees, 80, 100 years old. And that's what makes like Sosúa Beach the most unique beach, because you got a kilometer of shade you can walk in, and you can walk straight out of the shade onto the sand and then take a beach umbrella and lie by the edge of crystal clear water in a bay that has very still water most of the year, with a couple of big coral reefs out there with all the corals and fish and everything. There's catamarans that come in there and so forth. But back to the beach itself, there's restaurants and cafes all the way up. We call them casitas. And for 50 plus years anyway, tourists by the millions have flocked to this beach and enjoyed a very easy access from three sides, the middle and two ends. They've been able to enjoy shopping, taking a plastic table and some chairs and having a fish dinner under the shade, looking at Mount Isabella and a beautiful tropical bay, and all the activity of families or kids jumping in the water and having a good time, you know. So it's just been it's the most amazing vibe that was there. They've killed all of that, and now they've ripped all the trees out from both ends. And if they can succeed with these new concrete plazas, which is destroying jobs, destroying businesses, then they're going to rip all the other trees out and put a big-ass resort there, excuse my French, and kick everybody out of the beach. And from everything I've learned, because the left hand here doesn't tell the right hand what it's doing, their plans are to have cruise ship customers come in. This is what it's all about. Cruise ship customers come to a famous American brand restaurant, get them to the beach, and then back on the cruise ship. Now, then their philosophy is, we don't want those cruise ship customers to experience anything we don't want them to see. So what needs to be gotten rid of here? Well, we don't like all the, and they are racist, African Americans. They've picked on a lot. So they're very nasty in what they've done over the years. But I chant for the African Americans who have come down here and support. They kept us alive during COVID. They kept us alive before, because this has been going on for years, actually. I've made videos about this. And then even now, after Operation Atlantico, they're the ones that are coming back based on a little bit of encouragement and keeping the businesses, or some businesses, alive. The most entrepreneurial are still hanging in there with the nip of the fingers. But the whole idea is they want a family town. So they started straight away after this big Operation Atlantico, where they took all the ladies away, and it was dangerous for any lady to walk on the street. They even took, staff working in different restaurants. They was just trying to get home from work. They took other ladies who went from, say, the house or apartment to the grocery store, and they got arrested. And then they have to prove that they are not a prostitute. Like to me, it's human rights violations right there, because it's not an illegal thing in this country. So if it's not illegal, why are they touching them? They have the right, as long as they're not showing off anything, to walk down the street, to walk on the beach like any other human being. Anything else is tyranny. And I'm doing my best to fight against this BS. And it's just destroying the tourism, because the mixed tourism, even the families that came enjoyed the vibe. The couples that came enjoyed the vibe. We get a lot of snowbirds come down, especially from Canada and US. Right now is the time that we see them around the area. And they even say it's not the same vibe anymore. There's no bands. Why not? Because the establishment can't afford to hire the band, because there's not enough tourists. There's hardly any karaoke's left. When I came here 15 plus years ago, it was packed with people. There was bands everywhere. There was karaoke's everywhere. There was just the most amazing vibe in this town. And if you didn't want to be involved in what happened on a 200-meter little strip with all the girls and all the nightlife and stuff and clubs, you just stayed out of that 200-meter strip. Sosúa actually has a lot of gated communities, a lot of different activities and places and restaurants and beaches and so forth. There's several beaches here that you can go to. So there's plenty to do for people who are coming for sunshine and relaxation. I'm not so convinced it's a family town, but because it's not structured infrastructure-wise or in terms of parks for kids and stuff like that. They haven't made that. But straight away after Operation Atlantico, they started having the streets blocked off and put stages of clowns screaming and invited families to come in. And there was hardly anybody who turned up. But what they did do was kill all the bar business and restaurant businesses, because nobody wanted to listen to dong ding, dong ding, some kind of kids music with a loud screaming clown. So they should have kept that in the park where it used to be. And then they put car shows on. They put a Philharmonica orchestra on. And they had all these attempts to bring in family tourism, and it didn't work because they weren't used to coming here. And who wants to see soldiers everywhere? Every 50 meters, you would see 2, 3, or 4 cops with shotguns.
Right.
It's like, no, that's trouble. Let's stay away from this. And it's still like
It's not
that
welcoming.
now.
It's not welcoming.
Yeah. And it's definitely scares families off. And it's all about them they want to own this town and have their future fabricated tourism. Okay, we're going to take 3 truckloads of tourists to this little Hollywood town. And we take them to this restaurant and then feed them, and then we take them to the beach and show the beach off, and then back to the cruise ship, and we've made our money. Or, they're also bitter that they're not making a cut from every shop that's currently making money. So they want to control everything. So they get a cut from the tours, from the taxis, from the shopping, from the restaurant visits, everything. So,
and Mr. Steve, when you say they, who specifically are you referring to when you say they want to control it? Who are you talking
I want to be careful here. There's one chain I don't want to mention the name of, but then there's, I'll just say cruise lines. And
so it's private businesses in connection with the government, because they can't just do stuff
so
without.
The government has sold the place out to big companies. All right.
And when you say sold the place out, you mean they've sold the land? Like, what have they sold?
They basically said, we will help implement your agenda. You can set up your fast food joints in this town. We will control the police, which look more like an assault team. What do they call it? Militarized police. I'll go there afterwards, but so they are paying for this.
So the corporations are paying
to the government.
Through the government.
So the government is making money out of allowing this gentrification to happen. And the same's happened in Jamaica everywhere. And the Jamaicans are jumping up and down and angry about this.
Is that not illegal? Like, how are they paying? Is that
it's all corrupt. It's all corrupt. And they are violating the Constitution from A to Z on this whole thing. And people, it's like, why ain't they fighting back? Because they've been mentally neutered for so long. They're so scared, because one thing I have learned about Dominican police is it's ready, fire, aim. Shoot first, ask questions later, or justify things later. So
really,
they can look oh so sweet and all the rest of it, but you come at them. I've seen it near me, shooting in the air, and one cop pulled his gun out and shot a guy in the foot down on the beach one time. This is probably a few years back now. I remember the video went viral and all the rest of it. So it is really, the moment they feel any kind of resistance, boom, they switch from severe friendliness to non-thinking kind of actions just to show their force. And this whole Operation Atlantico, if they wanted to get rid of a certain group of people in society, they could have come in a lot lighter, but no, it had to be the big sledgehammers, machine pistols and guns and batons and heavy loads of police, and we're going to get rid of them. Like they killed everything. They killed the whole economy, and the town just got slammed. Now, just like a forest fire, it starts gradually growing back, and I'm trying to encourage that whole regrowth, but there's prevention and cure. Cure is, we have to help businesses get back on their feet again and all the rest of it, but then they can just come in and do it again. So there has to be the preventative side, put information out that this is violating the Constitution. It's violating human, civil, and property rights. They kicked doors into apartments where families were and dragged teenagers out and accused them of being prostitutes when there was just somebody's daughter sitting there watching TV, So this kind of crap went down, and nobody has, in the authority positions, have paid the price for these crimes that was committed against the locals of this area, the ladies who was visiting, or anybody else who was affected. I haven't even touched on the Haitians. There's some serious stuff that's been going on for a while, but during Operation Atlantico, they came down heavily on the Haitians. Any Haitians just got dragged away like they were a criminal.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned when you first got to the Dominican Republic, you were trying to sort out what you would do for money, and you figured out something. What were some of the other challenges that you came across? And if you were advising somebody that was considering coming to the area and becoming an expat, like what would be the advice you would give them, especially now you've got the benefit of hindsight of what you've been through, and now with everything that's going on, I'm curious, what would that advice be to somebody looking at coming there to do what you did, to live there?
Well, I coined an analogy called a Mack truck analogy. Imagine making money is like filling a truck full of nuts. Typically in like US, you fill it with coconuts. Here it's peanuts. So the best way to have happiness and joy, relaxation in this country is come with enough money that you don't have to work here.
So sort of
And
like
if
a
you screw up
retiree,
like
not
I
somebody.
did, if you screw up like I did, then you have to work here. Then you have to figure it out. But then it's better to come with an overseas-based income so you can go to the ATM or have wire transfers to your bank account that you set up here and then live off the coconut money, not the peanut money that you can make here in general. To get money out of this marketplace is like pulling fresh teeth out of a face for most people. It's not an easy thing to get something profitable happening here because especially what's called an open door business, which is a shop and office where authorities, tax departments, anybody can walk in, the hustler, the beggar, the police, anybody can just walk in because you got an establishment with open doors in public. You know, those kind of businesses, the moment they become profitable, they want to tear it down. Unfortunately, I found that to be true. I saw what used to be called Roomba. The moment that started making a lot of money, they shut it down. They shut down over 15 clubs and bars that was doing pretty good and just crushed them all in this town. And very sad. And I always thought, I'm glad I'm not that owner of that business, dealing with this BS on a daily basis. There's the hustlers, the beggars, the cops that come around. And if they don't get their free meals and their free this or free that or some money when they try to extort the owner, then they will do their utmost best to have him shut down and come, oh, we found an underage girl in your establishment. We're shutting it down. So now you've just had your business destroyed. So that leads me to the next advice, which is anybody coming over here and you have to work from home and don't have any signs on your gate. Work from home. You know, the happiest working people here work from home. Plumbers, they pull out of the gate. Okay. Billy the plumber, he may have his logo on the side of his truck, but that's as far as it goes. He doesn't have it on his gate, on his house. You know, there's haves and have-nots, and the have-nots wants what the haves have. So here you have to be more careful than if you lived in Sweden or, maybe Brazil or Argentina or somewhere. Here you have to be really careful not to flaunt anything. You get rid of your bling. You wear a $9.95 watch, not the Rolex. Keep that in the drawer for when you go on trips. So this is a very important lesson.
Do you see a difference with the images that are presented to investors and potential expats by different real estate agents and people, marketing the area for people to move there?
Oh, yeah. I actually hire myself out for relocation consultancy. But not only that, then it reaches a point where they then arrive to the area, because I do a lot of this through video calls to Canada or Europe or wherever they're from. So when they come here, I do a 3-hour introduction tour, and I tell them, video it, because there's going to be a lot of information squashed into 3 hours. This is the best place to get a cheeseburger. This is where you get your insurance. This is where you connect your telephone. I find this company's better than that one because of this and this and that. So now I'm nearly up to 18 years in this area. So you get to know who's a scammer and who's straight, and this is what they are willing to pay for, But what was your last question? Because I was heading towards something else with that.
Yeah, the different images that investors are presented with by different realtors.
One thing I do during that tour is I take them out, if they are interested in real estate, I take them out and show them areas. And I give them, I don't have the rosy colored glasses on. I don't try to put them on the client. I tell them as it is, positive, negative, or in between. There's nothing negative. There's just warnings. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So I'll warn them. This gated community, a lot of people are happy here, but some of the complaints that I hear is this. So they have the facts, and then they can make a fully informed decision rather than a prejudged, silly decision and then get themselves into trouble later in a lawsuit over here. A lot of people come down here and they say, I'm not paying for consultancy, and then they're in court. Did you come to paradise to have the dice stripped out of paradise? No. But it's amazing how many people. One client from Canada, it's a couple, they actually said to me, we wish we had listened to you and used your recommended suppliers, which is another thing I specialize in here. Tradespeople, suppliers, shops, and the diamonds. Overseas, it's all protected by regulation. So if you look through a list of 20 electricians, we can just pick anyone. They should be certified and okay. No. And you have some, what's it called? You have some backing there by the law if they didn't do you right. But over here, no. This is where they made the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. So there's a lot of pirates in the. So it's who can do the job properly. When you know that this person typically turns up on time, they do a good job at a fair price, they appreciate two things: repeat business and referral business. And a lot of people down here don't give a hoot about repeat business and referral business, especially in these beach communities or tourist towns. Because, we can rip him off because there's another one coming soon, and then we'll rip him off as well if we can. It's that one-time kill that they're after. And they'll keep doing this crap because they'll fly out and then another one comes in. So I try to give them the real scoop of who can be trusted, who they should go with. And like this couple, they chose their own construction firm, and now they're in criminal court with that firm who tried to stiff them. And they wish they had gone with one of my 3 recommended construction companies. So
we talked about gentrification a bit, and I'm curious, you mentioned it briefly, COVID. How did COVID change the area, and what's the lasting effect on the area from the COVID pandemic?
Well, I started scratching my head thinking, did so many people fly out? Are they still sitting in their homes? Stay at home. And there's some I didn't see for 2-3 years afterwards, and like, have you been in Europe? Or no, I'm here the whole time. I said, well, I'm around town like this and I ain't seen you for 3 years. Where the hell were you hiding? So I don't know if that answers your question. A lot of them were brainwashed to cocoon themselves. It was the tell-lie vision, brainwashing people 24/7. The new normal, stay at home. The ninja variant, the Marburg variant, the elephant variant, be scared, and brainwashing people. And of course, that's how they're trying to get people to give up more of their freedoms, to get rid of cash, make that illegal. I mean, had we heard that 20 years ago, what are you talking about, making cash illegal? Well, they're doing it in Europe now. They're even counting down the days till it's going to happen. And that's because humanity has been, excuse my French again, pussified, turned into pussies, and they've forgotten how to fight back, how to stand up for their rights, because I know we should go to that protest, but that Lakers game's on and I don't want to miss that. What a shame. So anyway, this is, you ask how COVID had changed everything. So people, I was shocked during the whole, I call it COVID-19 because COVID stands for Certificate of Vaccination ID, COVID. There you go. It was a planned thing. They ordered all the PCR tests to global governments in 2018, before it even started, before there was talk about a wet market in China, blah, blah, bullshit. Now, there's websites where they showed the proof that all PCR tests were, how did they all walk in lockstep, And what happened when the whole thing was finished? Ah, damn, we can't control them through that medical scam anymore. So let's start some wars. What people don't realize, everything falls under 4 umbrellas. Everything you hear in the media comes through either as scamdemic related, or it's war, or it's climate change shit, or it's division programs, how to divide people politically or racially or something. Everything you hear from that television is constantly bombarding you under those 4 umbrellas every minute of every hour. Switch on one of these fake stream media stations, and it's all controlled by the same people who are making this gentrification. It's coming over humanity like a big poisonous blanket, and like the frogs in the pot, they don't see it. It's death through 1,000 cuts, you know. So one other thing is, like 7 years ago in this area, you could get from Cabaretta to Puerto Plata in 45 minutes. Why? Because there was no traffic lights. It was wonderful. Now there's 35 traffic lights and spy cameras and all the rest of it. And people are stuck in kilometers of queues, and it can take you an hour and a half, 2 hours on a bad day to get from Cabaretta to Puerto Plata. So they're getting humanity used to being enslaved, not in a physical prison, but in smart cities. That's why they talk about 15-minute cities. And I want to get to that about the travel. I'm very worried about the future generations being able to travel because they don't want us to travel. They came out, we heard all the bullshit during this COVID-19 thing because the World Economic Forum, you heard people like Klaus Schwab, in the future you will not be able to travel, blah, blah, blah. And then you think, who's this goof? But look at what the results. They've cut air routes off. There used to be in 95, 25 flights just from Berlin per week into Puerto Plata. Now there's maybe 1, you know. So they've cut all these international routes off. And what just happened with the government shutdown in America, and now you can only fly between major hubs and all that. It's all part of it. It's all by design. It's a bunch of, I'm going to say it, Zionist bastards who want to remove our human, civil, and property rights. You know, I call US United States of Israel. And I know there's people out there who's not going to like me saying that. And I'm not talking about every Israeli. We're talking about a government that's gone completely berserk, killing innocent children, people. They've brainwashed people so bad that people have become numb. They're justifying the most horrific things. And, well, that's horrible to watch. Let's switch to the sports channel. You know, people are at that point. It's not like in, was it 1780 something, there was the Boston Tea Party where over a 5% increase in tax, they all got their guns out. Those days are gone. You know, no, it's like, are we allowed to do this? They just killed 300 plus ostriches in Canada. And they were hugging the RCMP over there. Oh, please don't kill the birds. You know, we'll see. And they killed them. Boom, 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 boom. And they suffered overnight or 2 days before they had their heads chopped off. You know, so there's some gruesome things. We could go into all sorts of rabbit holes here. But
let's talk about.
I'm very worried about travel in the future. If we don't,
well, let's get into it. Let's talk about the smart cities. But before we talk about the smart cities, you alluded to something earlier about how the Haitians were treated in the area. What did you mean by that? Like, what's going on with the Haitian people there?
Well, for a long time, they've picked on the Haitians. But remember how I said the 4 umbrellas? One was division programs. Mm-hmm. So the globalists, they look at each country and say, well, how can we shit stir here? Because divided, we will fall. United, we will stand and overcome their nonsense. That's an old one, you know, but it's still as true today as it ever was. So when they pick on things in Chile, they look at what groups can we turn against each other there. In UK, you got all the immigrants, Muslims against the locals in UK, and then Clash Ireland, the same thing, and so forth. So these are weaponized agendas to stay in control, to get us under their thumb, So the Haitians here, it's the same thing. That's the oldest Achilles heel that exists in this country, is the turmoil between the Haitians, which used to actually run the show here on this island called Hispaniola. And then somebody conquered back, and then they split, and Haiti became Haiti. Dominican Republic set its boundaries and so forth. And others say, well, this used to be Haiti originally. So there's all sorts of arguments about that. But the other thing, the cabal, the globalist control, is the schooling. So when you take a 5-year-old child and you start, or 6 years old, whenever they start in school, and you start giving them history lessons, history, his story. Whose story? Whose story is that little child receiving? This is the dangerous thing about these globalists. They're very cunning, and they start early when they're kids to build up hatred in them towards a specific group. So when they grow into adults, they will always say, oh, get rid of them. So when they see tyranny against that other group, they justify it, and they actually chant for the tyranny. Yeah, police are doing a good job cleaning things up. That's what they said under Operation Atlantica. We're cleaning up the area. And you saw all these idiots chant. I had death threats many times here. Even just filming the streets of Sosúa, I'm getting death threats from people. That's how psycho certain people have become. They can't handle the facts, the truth, because it's like America right now. All these people who are chanting for the red-haired guy, Trumpy Dumpy, and then you're seeing innocent families being ripped out of their vehicles and slammed to the ground like they had just burgled a bank. No, they didn't just burgle a bank. Even if they were in the country illegally, they shouldn't be slammed to the ground and thrown in a concentration camp and disappeared in the system. I mean, what is that? That's some serious Gestapo shit going down. And any human being that can't empathize with due process, and that everybody has a right to go in front of a judge and all the rest of it. They don't give a shit about any. So that's not law enforcement. That's pure, raw, nasty tyranny happening in America right now. And just go back to Germany. How did the whole thing we saw of Nazi Germany, how did it start and how did it progress? They just kept turning the heat up and up and up and up. I met Americans today who say, that's why I'm getting out. I've got all my shit in storage over there, and I'm looking for a place here. And people are getting out because they say it just doesn't feel right. Yeah, I've been studying this for many years, so I can take people down a lot of different rabbit holes, whether it's the chemtrails or whatever. But
back to the Haitians, what did you see? What did you see happening there locally with the Haitians? Like, what did they do to them?
They kicked their doors in, dragged them out of their homes in the middle of the night, traumatized children, treat them like they're animals, drag them out of bars, restaurants, show them off on like they did in Operation Atlantico with film crews. We got holding them by the hair. We've seen police officers dragging both Dominican and Haitians by the hair.
Are they still there? Like, where are they now? Where are they now?
The people who are taken. Well, it's a business. So this globalist precedent
where are the Haitians now? Where did they take them?
They kick them over the border. No, this is actually what they do. It's a dirty business. So they capture them, they extort them. If they can't extort something out of them for letting them go, give me that cell phone, give me 10,000 pesos. All right, now get out. And then they let them free. But if they can't get something out of them, they get into prison cells. It's a journey where they dehydrate them and they don't feed them properly. There's been a lot of international attention to this as well, from UNICEF or human rights groups and so forth, about how they're treating them on the journey back to Haiti. And a lot of them are Haitians who's never even been to Haiti. They were born in this country and they don't even speak a word of Creole, and they're kicked into a country they don't know. There's been documentary. You can find documentaries online about this.
But doesn't that
And
make them a citizen if they were born there? Uh, Does that
see,
not make them
this
a
president stopped allowing them to legalize themselves. Every Haitian I know here, if they could get some card that says, I'm legal, and the cops would respect it and back off, whoo, they would love that. It used to be like that, but then they stopped that. That's why you can go to the immigration in Santo Domingo, and there's queues of them sitting there because they're trying, but the cops don't give a shit. There's a room full of passports and documents. They steal their documents. Then they kick them back
So
over the
someone is
border.
born. Wait just a moment, Mr. T. So you're saying if someone is born in the Dominican Republic, what are they then? They're stateless.
Oh, there's some sad situations, you know, that they, of course, they fight with their birth certificates and everything to prove that they're this, they're that, and the other thing. But as far as the Neanderthaler type, some of the cops are like Neanderthaler brains. Just get in the truck. The moment they start saying, "But check my documents," they don't give a shit. Give me your documents. Get in the truck. I did a short video interview, just like we're sitting here, with a Haitian guy. He was very brave. He's now moved to Jamaica. But anyway, he was explaining he was trying to go for a dental exam, you know, to become a dentist. So he was on a guagua, which is like a minibus transportation, full of Dominicans. He was the only Haitian in that minivan, in that guagua, and they pulled up to a traffic light. There just happened to be a couple of cops standing there, and they say, "Moreno, ven aquí," you know, and they fished him out of the van, and he got kicked back to Haiti. And then what they have to do is now find like 20,000 pesos to try to buy their way back into the country, and round she goes. Every construction site you see here is primarily, in terms of labor, done by Haitians. The foremans, they like the Dominicans to be in charge, of course, and doing the lighter work, but mixing the concrete, dragging the blocks, stacking the blocks, everything that's labor intense is done by the Haitians. And that's what to me seems so hypocritical. You want them here to build your plazas on Sosúa Beach, and then after hours you hunt them like bank robbers and put them in that little corrupt system of give us your hard-earned paycheck or we'll kick you back to Haiti. Women, mothers are scared of taking their children to school to go down the street. I was with a family last night in the rain. You know, we were meant to do this interview. I was with an American guy who's got a lovely Haitian wife. They've got 2 children. She hardly ever leaves the apartment complex where they are. I won't, of course, say where that is because she's absolutely shit scared of going down the street.
Well, that American
and that's
guy
how
is not
a lot of them, they live.
Well, let me say this. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know their personal situation. But if he's American, like an American citizen, he's not doing his wife any service. All he needs to do is go to the consulate and report the birth of his children, and they're automatically American citizens, and they'll have an American birth certificate and passport.
Yeah, no, he's working on all that, but that doesn't
It's
help.
literally just a $50 fine, $50 fee to the consulate. It costs you more for the passport, but it's just a $50 filing fee. He'll get the birth certificate immediately and
but the
pay
cops
for the passport.
Here don't give a shit. They just look.
If he pulled out an American passport, they wouldn't care. If he pulled out an American passport,
I've interviewed more than that guy. Several Haitians.
Then would they not do that to tourists then? So then they would do the same to a tourist if he's walking down the street.
Yeah, I was speaking to a guy. He's from one of the other islands here, and when they hear their accent, you know, when they hear that American accent, and, hey, I'm American, leave me alone, you know, then then they back off.
But, you're saying so if he was walking down the street with his children and they came up to him and he said, "Hey, I'm an American," they would just realize he is American.
He told me about a situation where he was sitting in cafeteria. It was late night. They couldn't be bothered cooking, so he took his family to the cafeteria, and the cops kept walking past out, like pacing outside, eyeing them up. And when he came out of there, in the end, they had to leave. You know, he had to look at the cop like, you want to F with me. He's ex-military, and he had to give them that death stare, and then they kind of fizzled off. But he said it was not comfortable. And I've had many people who's reported that they were taken into custody and they had to fight in the police station verbally, about their situation. And why are you picking on me? I may look Haitian, but I'm from the US. And then they let them go, but then they're after some money, to let them go.
I wonder.
So
I wonder. I
it's a
wonder if
business.
I've just been. I wonder if I've just been lucky because I've been to these areas and no one ever talks to me. No one has ever said a word to me. No one's ever looked at me funny or asked me a question.
Okay,
And
let me
I've
give you
been.
one. Let me give you
Yeah.
this one. Your look is similar
Mhm.
to a Haitian doctor here in terms of, well, you're both smooth-looking guys, all right, and
Okay.
well-dressed. He
Okay.
drives a vehicle. He's been pulled over by the traffic cops. He's had the national police near him, and they don't touch him. So there's also an economic judgment. There's a lot of this judgment, skin
So
color,
it's classism. It's classism.
classism. Thank you. Yeah.
It's classism. Okay.
So,
Okay.
so sometimes he debates a little bit with Ahmed about whether he had gone through a red light or an orange light and all the rest of it. And then they're trying to fish for some money, and he may have to throw them a couple of hundred pesos, and then off he goes again. But they never got talking about whether he has the right to be in the country or not, because
Understood. It's
they put him
classism.
in a different class economically. But there was one
So,
campaign the president was running where he said, we got to deport 10,000 Haitians per week. And the police were hunting them at construction sites. They were hiding in the trees with their police motorbikes, wading down little roads where they knew the Haitians would come home from work, and then hunt them like animals. And then they go through that big meat grinder about, give us some money, give us 15,000 pesos, or else your butt is back to Haiti, And it was really heavy, and it was all over, you saw the trucks, and they were showing it off. So tyranny, big time there. And there was
so
another.
let's get into the smart cities with the time we've
Okay.
got left. So talk to me about the smart cities. What were you mentioned that they wanted to set one up in Jamaica. You mentioned that a lot of the clearing away and destroying the natural resources that's the motivation. That's the motive for it, is creating these smart cities. What are they? Why is a smart city bad?
Pack 'em, stack 'em, whack 'em. This is a depopulation agenda. During COVID-19, they killed off over 20 million people with their poisonous shots. And only now they're starting to admit that, this had some side effects and all the rest of it. Of course, all these companies, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and all the rest of them, had immunity from being sued and all the rest of it. They made sure of that. So everything is meant to harm, but the end result of everything they're doing to humanity right now is depopulation. I call him Kill Bates, Bill Gates. He stood at a TED talk on stage saying, if we do a really good job with healthcare and reproduction and vaccines, we can bring the population down as much as 15%. He didn't say we can increase. Medicine's supposed to save our life, isn't it? Huh?
But wait a minute. Let me push back on that from the population just for well, I can only speak for the U.S. The U.S. is naturally depopulating. The statistics show women are having less children, especially in the last two generations. So the U.S. is
Okay,
depopulating.
can I add one to that?
Of
50
course, go
years
ahead.
ago, an 18-year-old chap or lady would have had 3 vaccines or shots of some kind. Now it's
Okay,
80 on average.
where?
In US, the average 18-year-old now has had up to 80 different flu shots, vaccines by the time they're 18 years old. That's why you
Well,
have
the
a
flu shots.
slew.
Well, hang on. The flu shots are voluntary, so they're choosing that. No one makes you get a flu shot. And the reason I'm
No, we
pushing
were
back
just
on
talking.
that,
We are just talking about how they lure people in, whether they use coercion like they did with You don't have to take it, but you won't be able to travel. You won't be able to go to school. You won't be able to keep your job. You won't be able to.
Not with flu shots. I mean, not with flu shots. And you do have a choice. And in the U.S., you have a choice. Actually, you can not vaccinate even your child to go to school. You're just responsible for everything that happens to the child. If they contract any of the communicable diseases,
but all
you
these
can't say
diseases,
anything.
all these diseases, immune system problems, all that, it comes from a jab of something. And many
Right,
books
but
make
wait,
it
but that's not my issue. That's not the issue. What I'm saying is,
uh,
you're saying that how much vaccines they get. What I'm pushing back on is that's their choice. In the U.S. anyway, you do not have to vaccine even your children to go to school, but you accept the responsibility if that child catches chicken pox or the mumps or whatever. You don't have to vaccinate. It was decided by the Supreme Court in the United States. You have the right as a parent not to vaccinate your child.
yeah,
So
well,
what I'm
then you
pushing
just
back
need to
on
look
is,
in the rear mirror, and I'll push back
so
and
no,
say,
what I'm
just look in
pushing
the.
back on, I'm not disputing that people get lots of vaccines. What I'm pushing back on is you saying it where like they don't have a choice. Maybe in the Dominican Republic, they don't have a choice, or other parts of the world. But the US, they've got a
All
choice.
right, well, can I answer that?
Of course.
During this whole COVID thing,
Hmm.
you had to take it. Otherwise, this. They had all these coercion
Restriction.
techniques. You can't
Hmm.
fly. You can't get your groceries. You can't do this. You have to wear a face nappy, and so on and so on. This is corporations and governments in cahoots forcing shit onto the general public that you don't have to take it, but you won't be in the military anymore, and you'll lose out on your pension. You lose out on your pay. So they put people in such a nasty position that they're screwed if they don't take it. And that's why both you and me, I bet, have heard many times people say, well, I had to take it because I needed to get to see my mother. I had to take it because they were coerced into it, manipulated. This is not a normal, natural thing. My body, my choice, respect it. But I still want to go and buy my damn cheese. I got stuck. I haven't been to one of the supermarkets here since the beginning of this COVID thing, because I came to the door and they said, ooh, you got to wear a face nappy. And I said, get your manager. You're pushing medical discrimination on me. If your face nappy works so well, why are you worried about whether I wear one? So it was insane. And you could see who bought into all of this hype and fear porn by whether they were wearing one of those on their face. I never did. I never wanted to. I gave out thousands of flyers that warned people about breathing in their own carbon dioxides and creating hypoxia in your lungs, as well as warning them about taking the bioweapon that now has been proven to have over 40 nasty ingredients in it. And we've seen
Wearing a
news
mask,
anchors drop dead. We've seen sports people drop dead,
wearing a mask does
alive
not
for
protect.
hours.
Wearing a mask, I think part of it was the misinformation, a misunderstanding of what the mask does. Wearing a mask does not protect you from another person. It protects the other person from you. That's why a doctor in surgery wears a mask. He's not protecting himself from it's to protect the patient from any
a guy who got killed
contamination.
by the cabal? Dr.
I'm sorry?
Rashid Buttar. He's a guy that they killed because he was too outspoken during the COVID thing.
Mhm.
Dr. Rashid Buttar, he said very wisely, a chain link fence won't stop a mosquito, and that mask won't stop anything like a
Well,
virus.
not
A
all masks,
virus sits on the surface anyway.
not all of them are created equally. Of course not. Some are just,
Yeah.
it's like putting a piece of cloth in front of your face. It's of no consequence.
Yeah.
So all of them are not the same. But we went off on a
But no,
tangent.
since I don't leave anything unfinished. So
Well, we
on
didn't
that
even
one,
finish what we started. I want to go back to what we started. We started talking about
let me
smart
just
cities and then got into
one more
this.
minute on that. We
Go
saw
ahead.
the politicians from side cameras asking, "Are we done?" And they all took their face nappies off and shoved them in. They didn't
Mhm.
wear them. Why? Because it was a scam. If you stand up in a restaurant, the virus will attack you. If you sit on your ass, you're safe. And everything was labeled COVID. If I hit a truck with my motorbike and died, Oh, yeah, he caught COVID. I fell off a 5-story building, snapped my neck and died. Oh, yeah, he caught COVID. There was 3,055 flu deaths in Canada per year until COVID started, and then they all miraculously disappeared. No, it got renamed, whether it was heart attacks, kidney disease deaths, heart attack death, any kind of death got relabeled because the hospitals were paid by the World Economic Forum and all these globalist bastards to encourage doctors to violate their Hippocratic oath and jab as many people as possible. And they've killed over 20 million people already, and people are still suffering. I just spoke to a guy the other day. He said, now I get the flu almost every month or two. I only used to get it every year. And I said, how many boosters did you take? Or how many shots? Oh, I took 4. You have to be careful what you allow people to push into your bloodstream, because you have a perfect immune system. And the way they can depopulate is by, I nearly said something French there, screwing up your immune system. So my body, my choice, and I will go to any length if people don't respect that, because I only have this one body. That's my vehicle for this life, my physical vehicle, and I will protect it, with any means. So, it's what people, if they want to drink 2 bottles of whiskey per night, that's their choice. It's their body. It's not my body he's destroying,
There's only one caveat to that. There's only one caveat to that before we get on to the smart cities. There's only one caveat to that. My only problem with that is I have no problem with freedom. I'm an independent libertarian type thinking person. I'm all about freedom as long as what I'm doing does not negatively impact another person. And I'm speaking about the US because I'm American, obviously, and that's where I live. What I'm talking about, what bothers me is if you live your life a certain way and your health is not as good in the end, and you don't have the proper protections as far as insurance or whatnot, and that's a whole nother, problem there. But then you become a burden on the rest of us who did not take.
You see, to me, this is all programming. This is all the kind of propaganda that they pushed on us during the COVID thing. Because go watch George Carlin on immune.
I'm not talking about COVID, Mr. T. I'm talking generally. The taxes here in the United States are crazy. We pay a lot of taxes, and one of the number one costs in America is healthcare, which my opinion is it's directly related to the health of people, which is not good. And that's due to my body, my choice, and doing all these things separate to COVID. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about drinking and processed foods and all that sort of thing that negatively impacts health, that the other people who they have to pick up the slack because you can't take care of your own health care. That's the only thing I have.
There's a reason why they made the movie called The Matrix, because you live in the Matrix, especially if you're in America. They've weaponized the food system. They don't want you to have meat anymore. They want to control.
Yeah, I'm not disputing any of that. I'm just talking specific. I'm being real specific just on the one comment you made about my body, my choice. I am not disagreeing with any of that or even in conflict with that. I'm just saying your body, your choice has consequences to other people, and that's a problem. Whether you're brainwashed, whether you're what, your body, your choice, the way to
teach me that one. Maybe there's something I'm not understanding here. So if Billy Smith living down the street, he's obese and he gets the flu every 2 months, how is that affecting you?
Well, I'm not talking about the flu. I'm talking he's obese and he goes in the hospital because he has heart issues and heart problems due to the obesity. That makes my health insurance more, because that's how the matrix, the system, as you called it, is messed up for all of us. Because now that Billy has all these heart bypass surgeries and all this sort of thing because of his obesity, not his flu.
Oh my God, they're brilliant. Those globalists are brilliant. They're brilliant in an evil way. Not that I admire what they're doing, but they are brilliant at creating the crab mentality in society where people start, well, he should be arrested because he's not doing what we're doing, and we're paying all these taxes and all this, and everybody starts
That's
pulling
not
each other
that's
down.
not where that's not where
That's
I'm
why I
at.
love That's why I love Dominican Republic. Nobody here, none of the expats ever talk about healthcare. Guess who talks about healthcare? Americans, not Canadians so much, not people from Brazil. The primary nationality that comes down here and talks about, but what about healthcare? Because
But do you know
they've been
why?
in the system, because they're used to being in a manipulated system that
Well,
forces them
I wouldn't say it's a
in so many
manipulative
ways.
system. What I would say it is, and because I've lived in Europe and I've lived in socialist countries where there's socialist medicine, it's not about that. It's about they have they approach health from a free market business perspective, and that's the problem. Whereas in Europe, where I've lived, in Eastern Europe, where I live, the socialist medicine is not a business. It's just part of what the government and they provide for their citizens. You're sick, you go to the hospitals because your taxes are already paying for all of that. Of course, it's higher than in the US. I will never
Mhm.
debate that. But in America, the healthcare system is set up like a business. So when an American leaves, of course, their first question is healthcare because it's run as a business. And if you're not getting it through an employer where they're paying part of it or covering it for you, it is the highest expense. So in their mind, after their mortgage, it's something they've
Mhm.
got to consider because of how expensive it is. And that's related, in my opinion, back to the
Yeah.
system because it's run as a business, which is a problem. Health should not be run as a business. That's just my opinion, and it's
No.
not run as a business in other countries. That's why people never consider it. And to your point, when I visited the Dominican Republic and I've had like injuries from sparring and whatnot, and I said, "Oh God, I need a muscle relaxer because my shoulder's not healing." In America, I would literally have to pay a doctor to look at my shoulder to say, "Oh yeah, you do need a muscle relaxer." So that'll be $150 for me to tell you that, and now go to the pharmacy and pay another $150 to get the product. I walk into a pharmacy in the Dominican Republic and say, "I need a muscle relaxer." Okay, here you go, $20. Because it's
Boom.
not a business. So
Mhm.
that's why when Americans come there, to your point, they're asking that question because it's part of that. You call it the matrix, I call it the system. It's part of that system that they've been a
It
part
is
of
the
for
matrix.
most of their lives. But let's get
Yeah.
into talking about the smart cities. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about that and the future
Sure.
of travel as you talked about.
Well, if you study, you can just go on Google. They're going to glorify it like the rest of agenda. What I'm talking about, to put an umbrella over everything we've talked about that's political or what's happening to the world and so forth, it's
Mhm.
Agenda 2030.
Okay.
I actually made a documentary a few years ago with another lady they took out, in my opinion. They took her out. They took Dr. Rashid Buttar out as well. She became a whistleblower about a part of Agenda 2030 called the Wildlands Project, which is getting humanity off the open land. In other words, stealing our property. All right,
Mhm.
getting humanity off the open land into concentrated areas. So this is what they have come up with the terminology smart cities. Smart standing for surveillance, monitoring. I can't remember the acronyms exactly, but surveillance, monitoring, and then there's A for something else. It's not very positive. All right. It's
Okay.
complete control. And they say you won't need to travel. Remember that thing during COVID? Stay in your bubble.
Mhm.
Social distancing. Stay in your
Mhm.
home. Stay in your bubble. You know,
Mhm.
so they want to imprison us without us feeling that we're in a physical prison with bars. That's why they
Mhm.
call these damn things cell phones, because it traps you in there. Smart cities will also trap you in a city where everything's convenience. Everything from these globalists is sold under convenience. They cannot imprison you without giving you a whole lot of convenience. They want people to justify their imprisonment. Well, I know this may radiate me and all this, but I really like all the functionality, and it's I can communicate with my friends, I can join Facebook, blah, 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 and they'll even smash the house up on the parents if it's a teenager. You see some insane things out. Stack them, pack them, and whack them. See, imagine you are imprisoned in this city. Now they can control a lot of things: what food you eat, what you drink, what snacks you have. 5G antennas radiate you. That's already been proven to be weaponized technology that affects you on a 69 gigahertz frequency that mess with your cells, steals the oxygen from your brain. That's why people living next to 5G antennas in apartments, they faint, they vomit. Ladies think they're pregnant, but it's actually the 5G thing. Guess what they were busy installing when they did the Spanish flu scamdemic? New radar systems globally. Guess what they were busy installing when people were locked in their homes during the scamdemic, the COVID scamdemic? They were installing 5G antennas everywhere. And actually, I think in America, the only, if you can call it an organization that managed to get itself legally excluded from that was the fire departments. But near schools, hospitals, right here, Sosúa, you go to the CMC hospital, big ass antenna right up against the emergency ward, full of these antennas everywhere. Lovely, eh? You're in there in the recovery ward right against this. You take, and I remember watching this video, they kicked it off ScrewTube, but it was a guy who tested a radiation meter near a microwave, near a cell phone on a charger, near a smart meter. Did you know if you're within 100 meters of a smart meter, you're being radiated? So depopulation is what it's all about. They want us in smart cities so they can depopulate because these psychopaths think there's too many of us. Why don't they start with their own grandchildren and children?
Are you saying that the smart city is designed is because when you're living in a smart city, there's going to be all these negative things to your health that will kill you, and the goal is to put us in smart cities so we die? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all about killing people off. In Denmark, they've just put a new law, and look it up. I can't remember what it is. They're forcing farmers to give the cows, and you've heard about the GMO crop as well. And then there's Roundup in wine and in beer. When you start digging down the rabbit holes of how they've weaponized everything we touch, I said, like, need, want, desire, respect, admire, and live for. Everything is weaponized to poison us a little bit. The pharma industry is not there to heal you, to cure you. It's there to manage your sickness and keep you sick. That's why side effects are blah, 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 blah. Tyson took this pill. Now he's tried 6 times to get off this dirty pill because initially he got mold in his brain, sleeping in the wrong room or something. He cannot get off this freaking pill. And he finds he's addicted. And if he tries to get off, he gets sleep insomnia and he can't function, he can't operate, he collapses and all that. So there's so much of this shit going on in the world. They're not there to cure us. Why have they killed off so many Dr. Seppi and all these natural specialists on why do they go after people who put out books on how to, cure cancer? Why have they kicked people out of medical societies for trying to find cures to cancer? Because it's a business. It makes them trillions of dollars, and they'll go after anybody who comes up with a new way to take electricity out of the air. Or remember when they started coming out with cars made with water? This is control and profit and power. It always has been about that, and it probably always will be about that. And it's just, do we get caught up and crushed by it, or do we manage to become aware? To be forewarned is to be forearmed. And that's what I'm trying to do with, not just in this podcast, but in general. I do this every day with people.
I was
because
going
it's
to
called
ask you about
fighting for
that.
freedom.
I was going to ask you about that specifically because you are obviously,
Yeah.
anybody listening can hear that you're very passionate about this, and it means something to you. How are you okay? And what I mean by okay, are you safe? Are you being hunted, persecuted? Or like you say, you go out into the community all the
No,
time and you're filming,
I've had
and I
many.
know you are.
I
I
get a lot
follow
of.
you.
I block a lot of people because
Okay.
the CIA coined a terminology called conspiracy theorist, that one human being can use against another human being who's trying to present some evidence, some facts, something logical, something awakening, and then just crush it straight away. And then, yeah, he's just a conspiracy theorist. So the way I'm using my background as a rejection specialist. I actually used to run a seminar called How to Be a Rejection Specialist. And I'm using that same mentality and attitude. Some will, some won't, never mind next. We're not trying to wake the sheeple. We're trying to awake the sleeping lions. You know, there's a militia group that used to be good. Now they've all been compromised in America, over 1,000 of them. But anyway, that's another weaponized thing. There was one militia group that got its name the 3%ers, because it only took 3% armed men to turn the war to their win. And it was a success story in war. And this group of patriotic American militia people decided to call themselves the 3%ers because of that, you know. So it doesn't take that many people. Even in sales, we have the 80-20 rule. 80% of the sales people sell 20% of the stuff, 20% sell 80% of the stuff. Well, in freedom fighting, we don't need 50% to wake up. It's always the 10 to 20% that makes all the difference. One voice that speaks louder than 10,000 sheep that stay silent. The same during COVID-19. You know, now, of course, they're trying to criminalize free speech. You can stand on a soapbox in America and say, F Sweden or F Uganda, but try to say F Israel. Prison time. That's called severe tyranny when they make that kind of thing criminal. So I can't help myself, whether I'm the educated traveler, or I'm the educated tour guide or whatever, you know, I can't help myself fighting for human rights, civil rights, and property rights. Because if we are not sovereign individuals, what are we? We're just jellyfish on a slab till we die. You know, being a human being, actually, it gets robbed from you at birth. When your mother signs that birth certificate, your life gets sold off to the stock exchange right there. And you fall under something called maritime law. This is going somewhere else maybe, but you are no longer under the law of the land. That's why you can fill out something called a certificate of live birth, and you become a living human being off the land with blood running through your veins, air running through your lungs. Your passport is a vessel under maritime law, and a court is a ship and dry dock. And you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to find out how they create the matrix, you know, that you are dead goods in a vessel called a passport, and you belong to that country. That's why all Canadians got called back to Canada at the moment the COVID-19 scamdemic started. Of course, they used the excuse for your insurance won't cover you if you don't come back. They were calling back their vessels to port. You know,
So
crazy shit.
what would you
But
say back on the travel tip while we wrap things up here? What would you say to somebody? Imagine that I've never visited DR before. Let's say that, and I'm
yeah,
coming, and let's do two scenarios. One, I'm single. I'm a single male coming to Sosúa, to your community. What advice would you give me? I'm coming on vacation. I'm a single male. I want to have some fun, and I reached out to you and said, hey, I'm coming down to your neck of the woods. What would you recommend? What's that advice like? Single male,
bring lots of
vacation,
protection.
first time.
uh, sorry, I just had to throw a joke in there. Anyway, yeah, that and don't stay in a resort. The resorts are scamming people sometimes. Not all of them, but a lot of them are, by saying it's dangerous out there. And if you leave the resort, there's people that'll pull up with a gun and do this and that. And that way they steer people through fear to only go on their tours with their tour guides to their shops, to their cacao field or whatever it is, and then back to the resort, And don't listen to that hogwash. Get out there and you find out it's pretty damn safe. One thing I do like about, many things I like about Dominican Republic, but there's an underlying expectation of respect in society. You don't see senseless assaults here, hardly ever. You don't see road rage the way I saw down under, where they pull each other out of the window of the car and get into fist fights. And that was every week I saw one or two of those in the traffic. You don't see that here. Why? Because here, you don't know who's got a gun in the car, and you may just get taken out. They are very much ready, fire, aim. You don't want to come out and play Mr. Tough Guy with a wooden baton and bring that to a gunfight, So
Right.
Here they are more like tooting the horn, ¿Qué pasa, amigo? Whoa, whoa, whoa. They'll argue it out, but there's not like true hate. There's a lot of love in the Dominican society. That's why the first time I came over here and I saw in a resort, one of the staff just picked up a toddler and kissed them on the cheek and all the rest of it. And you wouldn't see that in Switzerland or in Norway or anywhere, that somebody would just pick somebody else's child up and start smooching them.
No, you would not. In some places, it would probably be illegal, but
exactly. Yeah.
And what would be, same question? The advice would be, I'm coming with a family. Like, what would the advice be? We're visiting for the first time, but now it's a family. What would that advice look like?
If you do stay in a resort, you want an all-inclusive. Enjoy the amenities and all that, but whenever somebody tries to talk you out of leaving the resort, just say, we're good. We are very experienced at this. And then get out there. Even if you hire a tour guide, when you do get outside, then at least it's not a tour guide from the resort. You can contact me, or if you're coming to this area, or contact other people in other areas. But get out there. And if you go into an ice cream shop and you speak to the nice guy or lady behind the counter, they are not going to try to give you advice that's going to lead you into trouble. They will probably warn you about this. Actually, expats can have all sorts of weird traits about them here, but one thing they all have going for them, if a new expat comes to the area, a foreigner, they're going to give that person the best advice they know how to stay safe and have a good time and a good trip, and where to find this beach and which restaurant has the best cheeseburger or whatever it is. So most people have a big heart here for helping other travelers or foreigners they're coming in that are new to the area. But I'm not saying in real estate, be careful, all right? Just because you're a Canadian, don't think that the Canadian real estate person is the best choice for you. That's what I do with my consultancy. I actually lead them to people who listen to what they want and help them genuinely find it at a great price and get them a deal so everybody can win, But if you're just coming here to have a good time as a family, go to beaches, there's different water parks, go out, explore the mountains, the rivers, maybe get advice on who's a good guide, and then have somebody with you. If you have a good Dominican with you, no other Dominicans are going to dare approach, because it's like a big taboo, a big no-no. You don't go and steal somebody else's group because he's making money helping these people, and they kind of respect that. It's like a unsaid thing, It's like you just don't go and pinch somebody else's customers in the tourist industry. Yeah.
Well,
did you want to touch on the one about my visions about future travel?
Yes, please get into that. What do you referring to with that?
Well, I dragged the conversation back to everything we were just talking about before. But
no problem.
Now the UK are having, as an example, huge protests about we don't want digital ID because that ties into, we just have to look at China. What the globalists want to do to the whole world is make everything like China. They were the test country for the digital tyranny of the world that they want to implement. So social credit scores, you can't get on that plane, you can't get on that bus, that train, because you spoke out against the government or because you overstepped your carbon footprint and blah, 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 and all this bullshit they've invented to rob our liberties from us. So that's what scares me for anybody who wants to travel in the future, whether younger or older or whatever, you know.
Do you get the sense that, let me ask you this question, because do you get the sense that maybe the world is going to heading to an inflection point where things just have to get really bad before they change? Could it not be the opposite of what you're saying, where it's just downhill and we're done? Could it not be we are at an inflection point where people are going to galvanize and say enough, and then there'll be a reset and everything will be okay? Is that not a possibility?
No, it'll
no
either go one
optimism.
of two ways. This earth is going to be under a kind of tyranny the world has never seen for potentially hundreds of years, or like what's happening in Nepal or Italy, people will smash down the governments, the buildings, hunt them down, hang them. And I think it was even Winston Churchill who once said, in taking arms against a sea of trouble, by doing so, you end it. You got to break eggs to make omelets. We were this close in Canada, and I'm not Canadian, I'm just saying the world with Canada was this close to snapping the neck on this evil agenda. And by the way, all music is satanic. It's in the freaking movies. They've been brainwashing humanity for years. You can't watch one movie today that's not full of the agenda. Concentration camps, digital this. They're always using predictive programming to brainwash people to accept it. So when it comes, oh, well, we've heard of that before. I suppose we just have to go with it. Facials, you know, you can't even get a cheeseburger in a Chinese school without scanning your face for that. You can't get the toilet door open without getting your face scanned. Do you want to live in that kind of shitty world? If not, start fighting. Stop being a pussy. This is a message to everybody out there. Break eggs, make omelets, you know. Freedom is like money. If you don't fight for it, it gets taken away from you. That's a simple one, you know. And no, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Trumps, the what's this psycho bastard from Israel there, Netanyahu, and all these globalist Freemasons, they don't want you any good. They want you to suffer, to die. Palestine was an example to the world. We can do anything to you and your children, rape, kill, murder, bomb, anything we want, and you can't do shit about it. How horrible. How horrible humanity's let it come to that. And now that sets a new normalization for humanity that, well, down in Nigeria, they're killing everybody. It could happen next. Or down in Uganda, they're killing everybody or whatever, and we just accept it. Or you don't get to see it because they're going to keep you distracted. Look at the football game so you don't see the big, nasty elephant in the room. You know, this is the problem. Distract, deceive, divide, conquer. And, you know, these guys have been at it for a long time. I want to say the name Illuminati, Freemasons, Zionists. This is the enemy. It's on your $1 bill. It's in your face every day. On the US $1 bill, there's an Illuminati sign, and it says in Latin, if you translate it, order out of chaos. That's what they're creating around the world right now, chaos, because if enough people are turned against each other, they cannot be fighting the evildoers who are pulling all the strings. You know, they won't revolt as long as there's bread and circuses, or they hate other groups of people. So right now they are it's like during Trump, we've seen some insane things. During Biden, we saw some insane things, with all the LGBTQ. We talk to your children behind the door and we get them to accept operations to change them into a girl or to a boy or whatever. All this insanity is like, what's that got to do with a virus and 3 weeks to wedge the curb and all the rest of it? I mean, it's just, we saw so much crap in a 5-year period there, and they haven't let off. I just want to say, every place they've got a smart city plan, you've just seen a hurricane devastate the place, which brings it into another topic, weather warfare. That 60 years ago, they destroyed the Viet Cong supply lines using cloud seeding, silver iodide, rain came down, it turned into a bog, and they couldn't drive the trucks properly, these Viet Cong. Do you think 60 years later, they don't have the technology to make hurricanes, to create typhoons, tornadoes, storms? I see shit in the sky I don't even recognize. Big blankets coming in like with a distinct edge. I didn't see that when I was 10 years old. No, we saw puffy looking, sheet looking clouds with a dark edge to them. And then it started slowly drip, drip, drip. Now it goes from palm leaves being like that to that in 3 minutes. And it goes from dried roads to like a flood coming down the streets, like in Las Terrenas. I was down there over the weekend filming. The streets were rivers. And they promised us that in the television, fake stream, control media. You're going to see extreme weather, natural this and natural that. These lies coming out. There's nothing natural. I'm not seeing anything natural. I see chemtrails going left, right, and center. Switch on, switch off, switch on. Hell, they even accidentally leave the chemtrail activator on in the airports, and it fills the whole airport with the shit. And you see in my videos, go through my video feed, and you'll see the airplanes full of chemical tanks, and Donald Trump, Merkel, the French president, walking through these planes, inspecting the depopulation equipment. They're filling us with metals, with aluminum, strontium, barium, lithium. All of this shit comes down. It gets in the water, in the grass. The animals eat the grass. We eat the animals. We are being filled with it. And then they hit us with 5G and soon 6G. And what happens when you put a fork in a microwave? And then what does that do to your immune system? And then we got the GMO food. And then we got the medical shit that they manage you to get into with all the side effects. You see, if they can get us to die off, he died of cancer, he died of turbo cancer, or he died of kidney disease or this or that, then people just kind of accept it because it's stealth. That's their goal, is to kill us in a way that it didn't look like they killed us. But we didn't invent the GMO. We didn't put all the shit in the food, in the medicine, in the air, in the water. You got the fluoride. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And they have lists of agendas sexually, politically, financially to destroy us. Food, water, air, all the immigration shit you see around the world. We are being attacked in hundreds of ways. And that's why most people, they just, I can't cope with this. I just want to stick my head in the sand and retain my cognitive dissonance for as long as I can and try to visit some nice places so I still feel a little bit alive. Freaking sad. People, they say, but don't you get depressed, Mr. T? No. You can't get depressed when you're busy beating a guy up. Have you ever tried? I've met a few assholes who needed a good thumps in my life. You cannot be depressed when you're busy fighting. The Vikings didn't. The Maoris didn't. We need to wake up that we are being cut to pieces by the thousands of different attacks. And I spend a lot of time. That's my hobby. I have a crazy hobby. It's called detect all these little things, study all these, go into it, have a little blast going into these rabbit holes, listen to David Icke, listen to Max Eigen from Australia who escaped to Mexico, Listen to the dollar vigilantes. Start listening to the right people. Don't trust me. Listen to, what's his name? Dave Wigington, Mr. Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org, and you're going to learn everything about geoengineering. See, they don't say chemtrails. That's a big taboo like conspiracy theorists. No, they call it geoengineering, and then cloud seeding and all this BS, and they sell it with millions and trillions of dollars they put into brainwashing people, that they even put it in the school books. What comes out of the back of an airplane, that's a Cirrus cloud on Optus cloud. Like hell it is. It's a chemtrail and it's full of shit. There was a lady, Megan Edwards, in Tinker Air Force Base, was watching all the powders and chemicals coming through to the factory next to Tinker Air Force Base. And they come over my house, straight over my house, spraying around about 5, 6 o'clock at night, heading back to Tinker Air Force Base to refill. And the American pilots fly over New Zealand, Australia, so they don't get too guilty, and they get paid more than Air Force One pilots. And the other pilots fly over America and spray over here. Once you dig down into these things, have the balls to just check out some of what I'm saying, because it's our world. Governments should be working for us, not us slaving for government and being their slaves and objects to kill as they see fit. Anyway, I've said this has been heavy, I know, but
no, that's okay. We'll leave it there.
A big piece of my mind, but there's I could go for hours. But
thank you for all that you've shared. We'll leave it there for today. But thank you for coming on BTS. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us and the audience. And if you have any parting words, go for it.
If just that last bit I didn't hear. If I have any.
Do you have any parting words for the audience?
Okay, yeah. Life is short, even at its longest, so don't mess around. Set goals and get out there. Like I say to all young people, this is the time to travel. You never know what's going to happen in 2 years from now. If there's anything that's certain, is that there's a lot of uncertainty. When I was 20, the world just seemed so much more certain. Actually, when I was 19, I traveled around the whole world, and I had the best vacations you could go into. Every town, and there was a rock band in every pub. I had a blast, the best vacations of my life. But everything's gotten tighter. And with we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have WhatsApp, we didn't have all of that. People communicated, they talked, they connected, they had fun. We climbed trees when we were kids, So I would love to see the world go to that. But anyway, on the travel side, get out there and explore. If you're not fast, you might be last. If you snooze, you lose. You've got to get out there and see some places, do some things. And then, like one traveler said today, you have the right to say, I reject being taken photos of. I decline. You're not getting any facial photos of me. Reserve my privacy. Vote with your actions and your words and so forth. We need to become very, very aware of what they're trying to entrap us with and reject it. And learn the laws of your nation and other nations you travel through, so you know what your rights are, and have documents maybe even to show. As it says right here, you have no right, and I have free passage if I've shown my passport. Okay, go on then. Break eggs, make omelets. Everything counts. Nothing in life is neutral. Everything counts. Thanks for listening to me, and thank you for having me on your show, and I wish you all the very best with your podcast, and hope I can be back one day with another round.
Of course. Thank you for being here. We'll definitely do a part 2. Thank you, Mr. T.
You're welcome.